What up, y'all? So today I'm gonna be doing this Skims outfit. Let's get into it. I'm about to show y'all what you need. So first of all, you're going to need some stretchy material. You can get this from like a Joann Fabrics. I just make sure it's thick and it stretches both ways. So that's that. You'll probably need about, I would say get about 3 yards of that. And then you're going to need some elastic for the waistband. I would get about a yard of 2-inch thick elastic, or just enough so that you can make your waistband. That's what I'm measuring right now. And then you're also gonna need some panties that have like a sharp V, some biker shorts, some scissors, a t-shirt that kind of fits you like a little bit snug. So if I could have redid this, I probably would have used like a thong or something with a little bit more of a sharper V. But you're gonna put those panties on over the biker shorts. I know it look crazy, but just trust me. And I actually am using like a marking pencil. I forgot to mention this at the beginning, but yeah, you could get like this marking pencil from Joann's. And I'm just tracing the outline of the panties in the front. Alright, so let's start cutting. I'm actually taking the biker shorts and I'm folding them in half. And I'm basically, it's hard to explain, but I'm basically taking just the outline of one panel of the shorts. And I'm cutting around it. I'm like tracing around it. So one thing that's important to keep in mind, which I didn't do, but it's easier if you put some type of weight on top of the shorts as you cutting them so that they don't move around. And also make sure you leave like a 1/2 inch when you cut around it for a seam allowance. Like when you sew it, you want to make sure you leave yourself a little bit of space to sew. Couple things to remember: you want to make sure your fabric is doubled, so when you cutting, it's actually cutting 2, and you're gonna cut 4 of these. So once you cut this, you're gonna flip this over to the opposite side, flip the biker shorts over to the opposite side and cut it again, so you'll end up with 4 pieces total. And you also want to make sure that you're cutting in a way that if you were to stretch the pants horizontally, that's the stretchiest way. Like they stretch both ways, but you want to make sure you cut it against the grain line. That's what it's called. But this basically means that if you were to stretch it and pull it out horizontally, it would be the stretchiest way. So now I'm about to cut these panties. Again, if I would have had a weight on this, it would have made it so much easier and been so much neater. But I was kind of in a hurry. So as you can see, I'm trying to cut it more of a V, like a skinny V shape. That's why I said I should have used a thong. So I'm cutting it like more of a narrow V. But yes, I'm just cutting 2 of these, one for the front, one for the back. I think the shirt is pretty self-explanatory. Make sure the fabric is doubled as you're cutting it so that you end up cutting 2, one for the front, one for the back. And I also folded in the sleeves because we gonna cut the sleeves separately. So right here, I'm just folding the shirt in half just to make sure both sides match up, and I just trim off whatever is uneven. Okay, so now I'm just cutting around the shape of the sleeve. The top part of the sleeve is going to be cut on the fold, if that makes any sense. And I'm basically just gonna cut around the shape of the sleeve. And you can trace the sleeve before you cut if that helps you. And also remember to leave that 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. So I'm gonna cut 2 of these, one for each arm. So now I'm just measuring the neckline, because that little band that goes in the neckline, I'm gonna actually cut that too. So I measured the length of it and the width of it, and I'm basically just gonna cut a long strip so I can create that neckline. So now I'm just measuring how tight I want the waistband to be. When you're buying the elastic at the store, just get a yard. Like, don't bother trying to measure your waist unless you know it, but just get a yard. So I'm just about to go ahead and start sewing. So I'm gonna start by sewing that V panty part to each side of the front of the shorts. So that V in the panties is just gonna line up with that little curve in the shorts, and I'm gonna sew those together on both sides. So it'll end up looking like this, front and back. So now the front and back panty things is sewn. So I'm gonna put the right sides together. When I say right sides, that means the side of the fabric that's gonna be showing. So I'm gonna put the showing sides together, and I'm gonna sew that crotch part. It's like a U shape. And those should line up perfectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and sew those together. I like to do a zigzag stitch and then a straight stitch. So you'll sew over it 2 times basically, so that you don't have no holes or nothing like that. And by this point, you should see the pants come together. And all you have to do is sew up the sides. So go ahead and sew up the sides and hem the bottom of the pants. Like, just fold it under, I would say, a 1/2 inch or 1 inch, and sew the bottom of the pants. So it'll end up looking like this when it's done. Alright, now let's do this waistband. So basically I'm just taking it and putting it into a circle, and then I'm sewing the edges on top of each other. Like, I'm overlapping them just a little bit. So you want to keep that in mind when you cut it too, to leave like 1 inch for that. So yeah, I'm sewing it together, and then I'm gonna put it over the top of the pants and fold the top of the pants over. Remember, the elastic goes on the wrong side of the fabric. You don't want to sew nothing inside out, so just make sure you're paying attention. And I'm just gonna fold this over and leave just enough space for me to sew right up under that waistband. And you don't have to do a zigzag stitch and a straight stitch for this. I just do 1 straight stitch. And be careful not to sew up the elastic. Like, take your time, use your finger as a guide so that you don't accidentally stitch that elastic, because if you stitch that, then it won't stretch the way it's supposed to. Alright, so at this point the pants is done. I'm just trying to figure out how I can take this panty part in. Remember, I was telling y'all the panties I used was too wide. So that V is just not giving what it's supposed to give. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna take some inches off of the panty part just to make it a little bit more tighter so it can fit better. And boom, that looks so much better. Alright, so let's move on to this top, and we're gonna go ahead and put right sides together, and we are going to sew the shoulders and the sides. Keep those armholes open, just the shoulders and the sides. And again, I would do zigzag stitch and straight stitch. I'm just measuring my waist right here just so I can make sure that the shirt is gonna fit snug how I want it to. And now let's go ahead and sew on the sleeve. So that part is the top of the sleeve, and this part is the part that goes into the actual armhole. So that shortest side, we're gonna go ahead and stitch that so it'll end up looking like this. And you're gonna turn the shirt inside out, and have the sleeve on the right side, and you're gonna put the sleeve inside of the armhole. Now if you gotta like run this back and take your time because you want to make sure you do this right, and you are going to match that curve in the sleeve with the curve in the armhole, so it should end up matching up just about perfectly. And then the seam at the bottom of the sleeve should match up with the seam on the shirt. Like, you see that seam line at the bottom of the sleeve? That should match up perfectly with the seam on the shirt. So that's how you will not end up with a crooked sleeve. But remember, that sleeve is going to be turned on the right side and the shirt is going to be on the wrong side. So when it's done, it'll come out looking like this. And then you can go ahead and hem the sleeve. So I also went ahead and hemmed up the bottom of the shirt. So now the shirt is basically done. All we got to do now is just add that little collar thing. So we gonna go ahead and turn that collar on the wrong side and put it around the neckline. I cut mine a little too long, so I'm just going around and measuring it exactly to the neckline, and I'm just gonna cut off that excess piece. So I'm gonna go ahead and close it and make it just like a closed circle because it's easier to sew that way. And I'm gonna line up that seam with the middle back of the shirt and just make sure right sides are together. And then I'm gonna sew around that circle as close to the edge as you could possibly get. So when it's done, it's gonna look like this. Well, not when it's done, but when you're done with that part, it's gonna look like this. And then you're just gonna fold that piece over and sew it one more time. And that's what's gonna complete the neckline. So this is the final product, y'all. I probably could have took the panty part in just a little bit more. That's just the reality of sewing. Sometimes it don't always turn out perfect, and you have to go in and make little tweaks and little changes. But overall, I think it turned out really, really cute. The fabric is really nice, and I didn't have to pay $100, so here it is. And let me know if y'all like this video, if you liked how it turned out, and if you try it yourself, show me, tag me, I want to see it. And I'll see y'all on the next one. Thank y'all for watching. Bye.